Anyway, this is part 2 of 113. This might end up being real dorky, and I might have to actually not use this one, which really kills me because it's rare that I don't put up there, you know, what I do, although I'm sure many of them I shouldn't have put up. But anyway, so they're sitting in there, and the newscaster comes on and says that they found out this wasn't a miracle, whatever this church had been doing or something, and then now the dad is saying, mercy, you know. And the kid said, you know, the kid tried to explain to him, Dad, you did this on your own. You know, you didn't need the help from anybody else. You didn't need to be saved. You didn't need any of that stuff. You did it on your own. And the dad said, yeah, I did. And then I think it went something like this. Well, let's go home, son. And he said, well, you know, he says, I'm not an alcoholic. Maybe when I get home I'll have a beer. And the kid said, I think. The kid said something like, well, Dad, you know, that's fine if you have a beer. You just don't need to overdo it. And so the man, they're walking home. I think he pops the little kid up on his shoulder. I can't remember. And the dad's saying, well, maybe I could, maybe I could have 2 or 3 beers. But anyway, I'm not sure. I guess the only point I was going to make that the South Park thing made pretty well was the fact that once this guy got down to AA, and I'm not saying this happens every time, come on, and I'm not trying to beat up on AA exactly, but you know, the dad goes down there, and the next thing he's on the couch with the shawl or the blanket saying he has this horrible, horrible, horrible disease. So anyway, it's, if you have an interest in 12 steps AA or whatever, you take the time. The South Park thing is great. I mean, the guy, you know, they just did a great job on this. Excuse me. I got another note. Someone sent me a note, and they said that their friend's brother stopped drinking and became addicted to AA. And the fellow who sent me the comment said, hey, I liked him better when he was drinking. But anyway, okay, let's get to the serious part. I think I mentioned that Mr. Dale had sent me this thing. Now, before I get into this, I'm not a scientist. Obviously, you guys know that, or any of that stuff. But I think it's often fair, if you're running your mouth like I do and spewing out these opinions, that if there's any bias on my part, that I think it's only fair that, you know, that I let you know what the bias is. Okay, here's the bias. Part of what I do on a daily basis is, you know, I occasionally have to work with people who we'll call addicts. And for this segment, I'm not going to use words like boozers, drunks, crackheads, whatever. I will try my darndest not to use those things. So I do have some bias. And now I see a different population than other folks who see addicts see. I see a different population, I'm sure. And so, and also my bias is influenced by this particular population that I see. And these are the folks who are, you know, sucking on the system, so to speak. They're showing up at emergency rooms. They're telling the emergency room people they're going to kill themselves and all this BS, which of course they aren't. And all they want is to get put in a hospital so they can get free room and board and all of that kind of stuff that we are paying for, and then, you know, charge out and start using drugs again. Now, this is most likely a fact. I'm sure you're smart enough to separate my stupid opinions from facts, but few of these people want to quit using drugs, period. Few. Basically what they want is a place to stay, because they've been kicked out of their parents' house 43 times, they've stolen the television set 99 times, they've stolen bank cards, they've stolen checks, they've stolen everything. These people, 99% of them, excuse me, do not work. They're out there stealing, you know, to support this so-called habit of theirs. And this is, so I am biased. I will readily admit that. So I want you to keep that in mind. Now, where were we? Mr. Dale. Okay, what Mr. Dale wanted me to take a look at that I did, almost did make my head explode. It's an article from the American Journal of Psychiatry, which is put out by, of course, the gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, it's American Journal of Psychiatry, put out by the Psychiatric Association, and this is the August 2005 edition. Now, the title of this, which I can barely get through the title, much less the other stuff, as I told Mr. Dale, I was afraid if I read every word in this thing, my brain would explode or my head would blow up. The Neural Basis of Addiction, a Pathology of Motivation and Choice. Now, what I came up with, and I read the abstract, the summary, and tried to wade through some of the other stuff. You know, it's got brain scans, it's got all this stuff on there, I'll tell you. I came up basically with what these folks are saying, and I'm not disputing what they're saying, you know, hey, is that you have changes in your brain, the addict does, and that ultimately it goes toward the natural rewards that we get from our addiction or using or what have you decline. Our cognitive control, our ability to choose, declines, and our drive to seek, our desire or drive to seek drugs increases. Now, Mr. Dale put it much better than I did, so I'm going to read from the note he sent me. I had sent him a note earlier today saying, hey, I'm getting ready to run out the door. I'll try and take a look at this tonight. Here's what Mr. Dale said. I think the basic message is summarized in the conclusion at the top of the first page. Basically, the researchers argue that in case of addicts, cellular adaptations in the brain's neural structure tend to override the frontal lobe's ability to make reasonable decisions. In short, brain structure can override what is commonly called free will. And then he goes on to say, at least that is what I gathered before my head exploded. He's got a sense of humor, too. My whole point in bringing this up is not to excuse addicts, but to highlight that addiction, and human behavior generally, is far more complex than we typically assume. As Einstein once said, things should be kept as simple as possible and no simpler. And then he, peace, Dale. So, anyway, at a time, I'll be right back. Thanks.